The ancient ninja walked slowly through the forest, feeling the cool breeze that gently blew between the trees. Each step he took was a meditation, a conscious movement, a harmonious dance with the nature around him. His eyes, though tired from the weight of years, shone with a deep wisdom acquired over countless seasons. He knew that the mind, with its incessant distractions and illusions, was a difficult beast to tame. Many are lost in their own thoughts, believing in the stories their minds tell them, and thus they stop living the truth. He always told his disciples, "The mind is not your enemy, but it is not your friend either. It is merely a shadow, dancing in the vast space of consciousness." This is our story, a lesson to always remember. In a small clearing, the ancient ninja paused, observing the movement of the leaves around him. He closed his eyes and felt the deep silence that resided within him. Thoughts, he knew, were like passing clouds in the sky of the mind. They come and go, without disturbing the vast blue space that houses them. Why then, he reflected aloud, do we let ourselves be trapped by these clouds? Why do we give so much power to the shadows that arise in our minds? The real challenge, he taught, was not to fight against thoughts, but to observe them without attachment, without identifying with them. Like waves in the ocean, they rise but soon dissipate, and the ocean remains serene and unchanging. The ancient ninja sat on a moss-covered stone, his hands resting gently on his knees. He began to tell a story he had learned when he was young, from a master he had met in distant mountains. This master, he said, taught that true peace cannot be found in the mind, for the mind is like a troubled lake. Only when we stop throwing stones into that lake, when we cease to identify with the thoughts that arise, does the surface calm, and we can see the reflection of the clear and infinite sky. He knew that many sought peace and happiness outside themselves, in relationships, possessions, in fleeting pleasures. But the secret, he always taught, was within, in the silence that exists beyond the mind. As he spoke, the ancient ninja observed the reactions of his disciples. Some furrowed their brows in confusion, while others seemed visibly disturbed. He knew that the mind, when confronted with the truth, often reacts with resistance. It is its nature, he explained patiently. The mind does not like to lose its dominance. It wants to control, define, label. But what you are cannot be controlled or defined. You are pure consciousness, the vast space in which everything happens. He paused, letting his words resonate in the silence of the forest, before continuing. The peace you seek is already here. It always has been. It is like a jewel buried at the bottom of the lake. You just need to let the mud settle, and the jewel will reveal itself. The ancient ninja stood up, his movements slow but full of purpose. He knew his disciples still had much to learn, but he also knew that each one's journey is unique. You do not need to seek peace outside yourselves, he continued as he walked among them, his steps so soft they made barely a sound on the leaf-covered ground. The peace you seek is the essence of what you are. The mind is just a veil that covers this truth. When you look beyond the stories the mind tells, beyond the emotions and passing thoughts, you will find what has always been there. The self, unchanging and eternal. One of the disciples, a young man with an anxious look, hesitantly raised his hand and asked, "Master, how can we stop identifying with our thoughts and find this peace you describe?" The ancient ninja smiled gently, recognizing the sincerity in the young man's question. "It is not a matter of doing something," he replied. "It is more about letting go. It's not about fighting the mind or rejecting thoughts, but simply observing. When you observe thoughts arising and passing without clinging to them, you will realize that you are not those thoughts. You are what observes, what remains always present. That is pure consciousness, the unchanging essence of the self." The ancient ninja continued, his voice calm but firm. "At first it may seem difficult. The mind is used to being the center of our lives, telling stories that we believe to be true. But with practice and patience, you will begin to see the mind for what it really is. A stream of thoughts, a current of energy that does not need to control you. Instead, you can remain like the ocean, vast and tranquil, allowing the waves to come and go without being disturbed. He paused to let his words settle in the minds of his disciples, knowing that true understanding would come with time, just as the sun slowly dissipates the morning fog. The young disciple nodded, though there were still doubts in his heart. The ancient ninja knew these doubts were part of the process, part of each one's journey. He approached the young man and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Remember," he said kindly, "you are not alone on this journey. All of us, at some point, are confronted with the shadows of our minds. But these shadows have no real substance. When you illuminate these shadows with the light of consciousness, you will see them disappear, and all that remains is the truth of the self. This is our story, the journey of all of us toward true peace and freedom." The ancient ninja returned to the center of the clearing, looking at each of his disciples with compassionate eyes. He knew that the words he had shared were only the beginning, seeds planted that, with time and practice, would blossom into a deeper understanding. "Now," he said, his voice soft as the wind, "let us all sit in silence for a few minutes. Let us allow this space of stillness to reveal to us what words cannot. Let us connect with the essence of what we are, with the peace that is always present, waiting to be discovered." And so, they all sat, breathing deeply, allowing the silence to fill their hearts and minds. In the silence that followed, the ancient ninja reflected on the day's lesson. He knew that true wisdom was not in words, but in the direct experience of the self, in the deep stillness that transcends the mind. And for you who watch and listen to us, he thought, know that you are also part of this journey. Join us in the next lesson, and together, we will continue to walk the path of wisdom. For in the end, the journey of the self is the journey of all of us, an inner journey toward peace, freedom, and true happiness. And as long as there were people willing to listen, he would be there, sharing this eternal wisdom, guiding them with his simple yet profound words through the vast and silent ocean of consciousness.